The most interesting part of this, and its USP, is the vocal lane, where we've got these 16 takes that you can place anywhere over the beats. And there are a fair few demos showing what it can do now, and how to record a vocal over a number of sections to create verses and choruses that you can't do on a standard beat creation tool. But everything I've seen has been pretty simple. Something like a main vocal with maybe a couple of ad-libs added or a little harmony here and there. So here I thought I'd take this to the extremes and see just what's possible using the full extent of these 16 clips to create some huge harmonies. Recording 8 different vocal takes here for each harmony, and then layering them and placing them across a song, and then adding some instruments as well. Things like,
where has all the love gone? Where has the love all gone? Where has the love all gone?
and then bouncing them down and doing things like this.
Where has all the love gone? Where has the love all gone? Where has the love all gone?
And I had a few instrument tracks in here originally as well, which is how this sort of track started off. If you're interested then in the best way to stack your vocal harmonies on this, how much you can record on the vocal lane, or just curious about how far you can push it, stay tuned and don't forget to hit subscribe and take a look at my Patreon if this sort of stuff floats your boat. Okay, then over to the track, and the beats on this are a little bit irrelevant. It's just essentially a piano, a bass and a beat. And as I said, the whole thing originated as a guitar track.
People I love so long, people I have known, lost their way.
But as soon as I started recording with beats and stuff and adding things on top, the guitar was completely out of time. So I sort of sacked that and put the piano on the top.
People I love so long, and people I have known, lost their way, their direction as they grow.
So yeah, I played the piano part and I used a MIDI keyboard to play that. You can't possibly play something like that using these, which is why I say the beat on this is a bit irrelevant. It's not necessarily something that you create using this as a standalone machine. If you turn this on and you start to create something, you know, that's the most complicated way of doing it. So ignore the backing, this is all about the vocals. I did have a little mess around with chords. So I've not used the machine like most people would, or the way you'd normally approach a track with this. I've added a few sort of nice little touches here and there, like a nice bit of phasey piano and some effects over that section and stuff. But yeah, but the focus here is definitely on the vocals, so let's move over to them straight away. The vocals are from this old demo here, so you can see quite how complex it sort of gets. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts on one harmony, then 8 parts on another, so it's double tracked, sort of panned left and right, this sort of thing.
Where has the love all gone?
And the main harmonies up here.
Where has all the love gone? Where has the...
So you can see it's really complex with the amount of vocals and stuff in here, so I thought it was a good track to try and emulate that using the MV-1. So the first thing I wanted to do was replicate it, making it from scratch by recording each of those individual parts separately, recording the original vocal through the line inputs on this, so not taking any files out, and using the doublet on the vocal processor to emulate what I was doing with the 2 vocals. So if you listen to this, And the reason why there's a big gap between me hitting the pad and the start of the sample is that I wanted to do it exactly like you would if you were recording the vocal originally. So you press record, there's a 4-click intro, and then you start recording. And as these vocals start on the sort of the 4.5 beat of the bar, you're going to get a gap between me hitting this and you're hearing it start.
Where's all the love gone? Where has the love all gone?
And on that you can hear the doubler, and you can also hear that it's got the effects on it. If we go into the mixer, we can see the vocal track's got a bit of delay and a bit of reverb. And I did play with this for a while actually. If we look at this, I did mess around with various delays and reverbs and stuff. There's quite a lot in here. If we just play the main vocal.
People I love so long.
All different sort of reverbs.
People I love so long.
All sort of effects, but I'm going to lose my place now, aren't I, what I was doing. But it's really flexible, it's the amount of different reverbs and delays. So I'm not going to go into them all now. But the iPad's a really good way of editing these, just because you can see so much, and with the multi-effects as well. The multi-effects, there's so much going on in here that it's great just to see what's coming up rather than using the smaller screen on that. Once you get used to it, you sort of know what's there, but when you're first sort of experimenting with all the different types of things that are in there, this is really handy. Guitar, for example, so a guitar delay, you can pick your sort of different types of preamp even. You've got a fair few to pick from there. And then your different speakers as well. So it's much more complex than it looks at first. So I have spent quite a while going through these and having a little play with them. But you'll hear again on these here, you can hear that doubling effect.
Where has all the love gone? Where has the love all gone?
And I did that because I thought I was going to run out of memory by using so many different vocals, using 8 takes on each of the harmonies, but actually I didn't have to worry about that. There was plenty of memory in there. So in the end, if you listen to this, you can sort of hear it's a little bit phasey, it sounds a little bit false.
Where has all the love gone? Where has the love all gone?
And I think the doubler effect is much more useful as sort of a lead vocal effect, rather than once you start stacking it with lots of different harmonies, it sort of becomes a bit more obvious as an electronic effect that you might not want. So in the end, I recorded each of the 8 takes on different pads and bounced that down to this.
Where has all the love gone? Where has the love all gone?
So that's got 8 vocals in there. And the main vocal has just got reverb and delay on it.
People I love so long.
But if we look at where we're sending that to, so oops, we're already in the sample edit. Going to the output assign is dry. It's dry, but we're hearing reverb and delay because the dry signal's what's going to the vocal channel. So this is going dry to the vocal channel, and the vocal channel itself, if we go into the mixer, has got delay and reverb on it. And that's why we can hear reverb and delay when it says dry. Just something that can be a little bit confusing when you're not sure what's going on. So go back into edit this again. It's got dry, multi-effects, 6 compressors, and then the vocal processor. So we can hear the vocal processor now.
People I love so long.
It's playing that doubler. But if we go into the vocal processor, just look at that quickly.
People I love so.
So just changed it to radio there. But if we edit that and we change it to the external in, so now the vocal processor is pointed towards the external input rather than towards the channel. So if we play the channel,
people I love,
you don't get the vocal processor. So to hear the vocal processor, once you've actually saved something, once it's on one of the pads, you need to make sure we've got vocal MFX here on the vocal common parameters, which you reach by editing the on button. If we go back into take 2, output assign vocal processor is in brackets because you can't access it because it's pointing towards the input. So back into vocal processor, common, put it to the vocal effects, exit. Now this will have the radio voice on it.
People I love so.
I may be overstating that a little bit, but when you first get your hands on this and you're trying to play around and you're wondering why there's a delay on things, why there's a reverb on something, or why I can't play the vocal processor, it's all to do with where the vocal press is pointing towards and then what you've picked in each of the takes. So each of the takes can have something separate in it. So there's a 12-string guitar and that has the reverb and delay. It's not put into the vocal processor. Let's edit that. See that output sign dry. Vocal processor, dry. I think I've left all the rest of them dry because I wanted to record them with the doubler so that I could use the vocal processor for something else. And of course you can change the level of each of your takes. So go through each of them, change the levels and get your mix right.
Where has all the love gone? Where has the love all gone?
And now we can bounce all that down to this number 8, which you can see is cleared at the minute. I've cleared whatever was on there. There's a little ad-lib. And here's the original demo of this. And I did bounce everything down to keep it sort of simple. So I don't think it's cheating. I don't think it's a workaround. It's actually what you do when you're working in a DAW or in a recording studio or sending stems. So just thought I'd show how you do it on the MV-1. So to bounce that down onto 8, I'll just go to where I've got them playing in the track, which is here. Let's record an 8. Back to the starter there. We can see we're at the start there. We're on bar 49, measure 1. So now this has got those 8 vocal takes on it.
Where has all the love gone? Where has the love all gone?
It's that simple. But I did forget to mention that on the inputs, you need to be looking at the recording source, which was the vocal lane. You can put that as anything. It can be the mix of everything or different individual channels. Or the external, wet, with the vocal processor, or dry. Anyway. Oh, and PC as well, so you can do it via USB. But here, I wanted to do it with the vocal. So to bounce it down, it's so simple. Make sure this is on vocal, and then just play it. So now we don't need any of them. I could delete them if I want. Which means all of a sudden, it's super powerful, isn't it? Okay, so let's have a look now at organising this and bouncing all those takes in, creating the arrangement. And what you can hear on what I've just done, I've missed out the start of the actual sample, and that's because the sample starts at the end of section 7 because it starts on the sort of 4.5 beat. So if we wanted to capture the very start of that, we'll clear 8. There's nothing in it, and now we can record over there again. And instead of playing the whole 8 bars of 7, we'll have to set it to start playing wherever the start of that bar is. So it was bar 49, wasn't it? So we'd have to go to bar 48 and a bit. So 48.3, say. Record that and play. And now this will have recorded that start.
Where has all the love gone?
So that's a good tip for when you're doing your bouncing. Make sure you start where you're going to start recording rather than the start of the whole section. Otherwise you end up recording all sorts of stuff, all sorts of silence that you don't need. So once you've got all your takes together and you want to arrange it all into a song, time to put it all together. And there are a couple of ways to do this, but by far the easiest way is to simply record it all live and then tweak the position if you need to. I did try placing them on the song section and then moving them manually, but I'll show that in a second. Unless everything starts exactly at the start of the section, you spend ages twisting these knobs in order to get to the right position. So recording them live by pressing the pads is by far the easiest. So I've left a few sections blank where I'm going to record this one.
Where has the love all gone?
So there, I did leave the gap, and that's why I'm giving you little tips here on what I've learned, what little mistakes to avoid. So let's record this where it should go. It should go around here. So it's missing there, so let's bring it in. So they're now recorded in there exactly where I wanted them. If I edit that, go to sequence edit, push, I can see where I've saved them. So I've just recorded one on bar 58 and one on bar 62. Slightly out of time. So I'll go in there and I'll just put that exactly on 59.1. Oh, there you go, there's only 1/96 out, which isn't bad. And the fourth one is a little bit further out. 63.1 exactly. So they should be perfectly in time now. If you try and do that with this method, so record and stick it there, it'll be right at the very start of part 11. But it actually comes in at the end of the bar, doesn't it? And it comes in at the end of the fourth bar. So you have to scroll through to the end of the fourth bar. So we're looking for bar 77. So you scroll through for ages. So much, much easier just to record it live and then go in and do a little minor tweak if you have to. To get rid of any, just clear and press there. While I was in the vocal sequence edit page. So I've deleted the fifth one there now. So as I said, this is all a bit messy. I've not finished anything off here. You can hear that of using the phasey takes.
Where has all the love gone?
And I'm using the non-phasey takes.
Where has all the love gone? Where has the love all gone? Where has the love all gone?
And you can hear I've played around with different EQs and different settings on things, but settled on this.
Where has all the love gone? Where has the love all gone? Where has the love all gone? Where has all the love?
I think it sounds quite nice.
Where has all the love gone? Where has the love all gone? People have lost this everywhere. Where has all the love gone? Where has the once we were young? Everything's changing, but we've just begun.
Still need to go in and sort of change levels a little bit, but yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. So I've not only tried it doing it live, I did think it might be quite useful to understand how it works if you're working with somebody else perhaps, or you do have some old samples or you've got stuff on your computer you want to use in this, and it's just so super simple. You just take the sample, stick it on your card, wherever you like, and then plonk it in and use it. So, for example, this guitar here is an old guitar. Go in there, edit that. Well, let's just clear it for now. Clear that. There's nothing on there. It's gone. So, go to WAV file, and I've made a folder called Where's All the Love Gone. So just in the same folder as all the other WAV files on this, just put a new one in there. And in there, let's go, there's the 12-string guitar. Super, super simple. So there you go, a bit of a mess. I've got vocals and stuff all over the place that I don't need. I could delete all these. I've got the harmonies packaged nicely onto pads 5 and 6. I've got the main vocal on 2. I've got some ad-libs on these. These are still all free. I've got loads of memory left. And yet I've still got a big, rich, thick sounding track. Hopefully. And yeah, I know the beats aren't great and the arrangement's not right and it's not finished. It's just me experimenting with playing around with big vocal harmonies. So overall though, I'm really impressed by how much you can do with this. The most time-consuming part of this for me was working out how best to place the individual takes along the timeline, and then recording them was by far the simplest way of doing things. And then what was the best way to stack the vocals, record it double, trying different effects, putting various little vocal processors on, and actually in the end recording all the 8 harmonies and then bouncing those down to the separate 2 channels on 5 and 6 was just by far
Where has all the love gone? Where has the
easiest way of doing it. And that's why I decided to make this video, because I'd spent quite a while messing around and I thought I'd picked up a few little tips that might be useful for someone else. So if it was of use to you, please think about subscribing and ring that bell, and maybe join me over on my Patreon page, where I've got about 8 hours worth of tutorials demoing how to program synths and stuff like that, and it just really helps me to continue making stuff for this channel. So as I say, hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere, and I'll see you next time.
Where has all the love gone? Where has the love